Tonight we're going to be talking about Martha. And when I started getting this list and thinking about conversations that we're going to have with Jesus, I really wanted to focus on what is a conversation that, as I looked at those sort of passages, one that really had an impact on me, one that I connected with, because sometimes when we try to figure out how do we preach something, we try to figure out, well, what will speak to other people? Well, I like to approach it from what can I learn? What could I benefit from when I'm digging in, taking the time to dig into God's Word? And then hopefully from the overflow of that, I can encourage all of us to grow deeper in our spiritual walk. And that's where I really love this Conversations with Jesus as the title. As he mentioned, I spent a lot of time with Dan Owen, and if you've known anything about me, you might have seen one of the Conversations with Dan series that we did. We put together a lot of videos that sprung from this idea of we want to talk to our congregation about things that they're struggling with, things that they have questions about. And so how better to do that than for we as the two ministers at that point in time talking together and digging into God's Word. And the point of any conversation is when you spend time together and you discuss things, hopefully you learn a little bit from one another. You learn about the perspective of the other person. They bring out some knowledge that they have that they can share. You bring some ideas to them so that you can have a back and forth and possibly be better people on the other side of it. Now, we've all had bad conversations where we didn't feel like that was the case, but the nice thing about considering any conversation with Jesus is that's the expected other side of this, is we will be better people from the other side of any conversation with Jesus. And so when I was going through that list, I saw Martha, and I went, she is someone that I have connected with on a personal level several times from the attitude that she had. And I think it's a beautiful thing that kind of looking ahead to the end of this, we get to see a wonderful change because of a conversation that she had with our Savior. Now, I want to continue on, and we're going to be talking about the good portion. That's the idea that she's going to walk away from, and so with that in mind, we need to start thinking about the meal as a good portion, as a good setup for us. And we've all probably had this experience at some point in our life. You have been invited to some sort of dinner party, whether that is your family having a big meal together or you've been invited to a friend's house. It may be sitting down and they say, hey, we're going to have homemade lasagna tonight. Or we're going to have chicken fried steak and gravy and all the fixings. Or we're going to be out on the grill and we've got some really choice cuts of meat that we can't wait to share with you. And you are excited to come to this meal. Yeah, it's going to be fun with all of your friends and you're going to share some good discussions, but the main course is what we're really looking forward to, right? We've all experienced these situations. We can all kind of follow along so far, right? Good, okay. If y'all didn't, I'd just move on and I'd talk about something else, but hopefully food would connect with us, right? But we've had that experience where we've had the main course that we're coming in for, and you show up, and like any good host family, they have some food ready for us because they want us to talk and hang out for a little bit. And you walk in, and there's the spicy crackers, there's the cheese, there's maybe some cold cuts, there may be some, cookies or something else that just you can't help, but as you're talking with everybody, you keep picking up a bite. And every time there's a lull in the conversation, you pick up another bite. And man, those spicy crackers really are good. And so you just keep, in the middle of every time. And before you know it, they say, hey, food's ready. And you go to line up or you go sit at the table. And what's the problem? You're full. You have fallen for the snack trap. You are now full of junk and you're probably going to miss the best part of the meal. Now, the nice thing is if you're at a restaurant when this happens, you can do a doggy bag. You can take the to-go box, and you don't want to eat what you ordered, but you can take it home. When you're at a friend's house, it's a little awkward to be like, the cold cuts and cheese were really nice, and I know you made this nice meal for me, but I'm not really ready for it. Do you happen to have a Tupperware I can take home? You might not be, if it's not a family meal, you might not be invited back. The presumption of this person, We've all fallen for this trap. We can all identify with this, with the idea of a meal in mind. But it's not just applying to a meal when this sort of thing happens. We've all fallen for this snack trap, this junk food trap, where we have filled our life with all the things that weren't necessarily bad, but they're not, as Jesus is going to talk about with Martha, the good portion. They're not what was desired, intended. It's not even what we ourselves really wanted out of these interactions or these things that are happening in our life. And so let's open up to this first part of the conversation that Martha is going to have with Jesus. It's here in Luke chapter 10, and we're going to read from verse 38 to 42. So Martha has an opportunity to have Jesus in her house. There's probably a good chance that she was fully prepared for this moment. She has welcomed him into the house. At this point, Jesus has been doing his ministry for a while, so he's known as a great rabbi, a great teacher, a miracle worker. He's someone who she may have even heard those things about Jesus as someone who's teaching with authority. She's looking forward to having him in her house. But here's how the interaction goes, starting in verse 38. As they went on their way, Jesus entered a village. A woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teachings, but Martha was distracted with much serving. She went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me alone to serve? Tell her then to help me." But here's Jesus' response. The Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and you are troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen the good portion, that which will not be taken away from her." Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about like sister dynamics and sibling dynamics and how Jesus is talking to one sibling and another and different things, and we'll have something to say about that in a minute, but I really want us to focus on Martha. The things she says to Jesus and the things that Jesus says in turn to her. Because in this, the first thing that we see is Martha is very distracted, okay? Martha is distracted by many things. And the same way we can see in that illustration we had earlier, if you show up for a meal, and even though you know what is coming and you're excited about what's coming, we have a tendency to fill up on all the junk along the way. Martha knew who was coming into her house. She knew that Jesus was there. She's excited to welcome him in. This wouldn't have been any small task because we know Jesus rarely traveled alone. He usually had quite a few people with him, at least the 12, but there were often many other disciples. She's not just welcoming Jesus in, she's going to be taking care of all these people. And so she gets a little distracted. She becomes anxious. She becomes troubled, as Jesus says. The word that's used there in the beginning when it says that she's distracted, it ties into that anxious and troubled, but it goes a little bit deeper and it says that she was pulling away from. This is you're distracted not just in the kind of I'm out to lunch sort of thing. We all have that person in our life that becomes a little bit distracted and you're trying to go, hey, over here. It's not that level of distraction that we're talking about with Martha. Martha's distraction is the thing that makes her go, I know there's all these people that I should be spending time with, but I'm going to come back here into the kitchen for a little bit and I'm going to take care of something. I know that Jesus is here and I should probably be interacting and listening with him, but I got dishes to take care of. I got to go take care of this stuff. And to her in that moment, that was important, right? Would there be anything wrong with being a good hostess in this situation? Absolutely not. Is there anything wrong with making sure the house is just right or the dishes are there or the food's prepped? Absolutely not. But what the scripture is telling us is that distraction was becoming a problem. It was keeping her from noticing what she really should have been focused on. And Jesus notices that. That's why we don't just have the reference there that she is distracted. We have the words out of Jesus' mouth. When he comes and speaks to her, he goes, Martha, I see that you are anxious and you are troubled. He sees that that is the attitude that she is carrying into this situation. And you can feel the care and concern that he has for her. Because this anxious and troubled is that same feeling that we have probably experienced at some point. We don't back away from our guests because we don't care about them. We don't spend all of our time focused on all the details because we just think that no one else can handle it, but we want to make sure it's done right. We're worried that it will go wrong. We're worried that it may not work out. We may disappoint someone else, and so we become so focused on those little details that they consume our entire mindset. And Jesus is saying, I'm right here, Martha. I'm wanting to spend time with you, but you're becoming distracted. And again, I want us to understand that that distraction isn't that momentary, oh, I looked away for a second. It is an attitude that has changed who you are. It has changed your whole perspective, and it is becoming a problem. Now, as I said, I'm the worship minister. That's like my main job at the Broadway Church of Christ. I do a lot of things. And I'm very blessed to have this opportunity that during the course of the week, I will know Sunday comes every 7 days, right? So I need to prepare every week for the next Sunday. And I sit down with our preaching minister and I talk with him about what is he going to speak on. What's his main point of the service going to be? So that I can then think about how do the songs connect to that. What specific verses do I need to have? What verses out of the Bible are we going to have in the reading so that we can have one story from beginning to end in our worship service so that hopefully everyone comes into the room hoping to approach God, and we have done everything we can to help them approach God and have a clear message when they leave that will help them have a better week ahead, or help them be better Christians, or help them through some struggle they're having. That's the goal, right? But any of you who have ever had to plan an event know that you can have all the great ideas, all the good focuses in the world, but when it comes time for the event, there's a lot of other things that go into it, right? And so the same way Martha got distracted by all of these chores and household things and being the good hostess tasks, I have that same problem. I walk in on a Sunday morning, and as much as I really want to be focused on worshiping God myself and helping everyone else worship, I notice, ooh, that light's out. Ooh, that trash can didn't get taken care of. Oh, no one's got the communion out. In fact, we're about out of communion. I got to remember to make a communion order later this week. And so-and-so's out. Oh, that's going to just, oh man, I got to get over here. And before you know it, I have a list a mile long of all the details that have needed to happen. And I'm even thinking about how do I talk to so-and-so afterward, and how do I care about this, and how do I do that? And I've got my phone out, and I'm making notes. Do you hear how this, am I focused on worship anymore? No. I have become distracted by all of those things. And I've let myself become anxious and worried because now it's not just, oh, the trash needs to be taken out. It's who's going to see the trash. And are they going to think that I didn't take care of it because I should have told the custodial company, hey, we had someone come in on Saturday night. Can you make sure and have an extra pass-through? Oh, are they going to think that I've fallen down on the job and I'm focused on something else? Now, that doesn't happen every week, and I have wonderful elders that care about me, and I have a wonderful congregation that cares about me. I've been there 10 years. We've got a lot of good relationship built there. But even with that, I still have that sneak into my life. And I use myself as that example because I guarantee each and every one of you in this room have had a situation where you've fallen into that same trap. Preparing for class, preparing for friends, preparing for your job, whatever it may be. You had the right focus initially, but you let all the stuff creep in. And if that happens in our regular life, with our day-to-day jobs, how much does that happen in our spiritual life? We had every intent to be focused on Jesus today, but all the stuff started to take up space and starts to worry us and concern us. And now it has pulled us away from Christ. We have become anxious and distracted. When he gets down to verse 41 and Jesus is having a discussion with her and he sees her and he truly sees her because that is the God we worship. We worship the God who sees us, not just physically, but sees deeply within us and understands us. He says, I see that you are anxious, you are troubled. I see that this has consumed your mindset and is pulling you away from what I, as your Creator, truly desire for you. You see, we think a lot of things are really important in this world. We think a lot of things need to be taken care of in the moment. But if we really start to put them into the perspective that Christ is calling us to, we will see that things that we often think are urgent, need to be taken care of right now, they're not really the necessary things. Maybe eventually, maybe they do need to be taken care of, but they shouldn't be all-consuming like we so often fall into that trap of. Activity and busyness is not the same as setting proper priorities. I love Corey came and he spoke for us, and I think you gave the same lesson on Sunday. I always love that when you can really hone a lesson. So y'all got the better version. I did listen to some of it again. When he talks to you about laziness, and he said all the devil needs you to do is nothing, it takes nothing to be lost, he works on that opposite end too. And he convinces us that if you do all the stuff, if you do all the tasks, if you get it all done, if you fill every moment, every waking moment of your day, and you do all these things, man, you've got it figured out. If you're busy for Jesus, you're good. Don't get me wrong, I hope we're working for Jesus. I hope we're serving Jesus. But if we've convinced ourselves that all the tasks are the purpose and we're not actually focused on Christ, we're missing the point. And Satan has done his work within us. We can be very distracted people, just like Martha was. But it's not just that there are distractions. It's the idea that there are necessary things that we should be focused on. And what Jesus says is he says, this is the good portion. You have missed out on the good portion. And again, I'm not going to get into the whole, is it Mary and Martha, and what would it be like if you were in trouble and he came up and said, hey, did you know that your brother or sister is doing better than you? We're going to leave that aside for right now. Because he's not really trying to say this is sibling comparison, and he's not saying, Martha, why can't you be more like Mary? You know, that sounds like if you're watching the Brady Bunch back in the day, and Marcia, 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 you know, we get that sort of feeling of we're always compared to somebody. That's not what Jesus is doing here. Jesus is saying, I want you to look at her posture. I want you to look and see how she is seated at my feet. Do you see how she's listening to me? Do you see how she's glad to be in my presence? That's what I want for you. Not just be like her. That's what I want for everyone who comes to me. That's what I want for everyone who is seeking to be after me, because I know it is the best thing for you. And this wasn't a new message to them. This wasn't new because Jesus was new on the scene. This is the same message that God had been giving to his people from the very beginning. He said, I am the portion for you. I am what will fulfill you. Going back to that meal idea that we had earlier, it's not just what is the best food to put in our body. What is the spiritual, emotional necessity that is going to sustain you? If you open up to the Psalms and go to Psalm chapter 16, or to Psalm 16, sorry. I still fall for that no matter how many times I even tell other people it's not chapters, it's just Psalms. But Psalm 16 is a good example of so many times this idea of what is the good portion to sustain you comes out in those toughest and darkest of times. When you really don't know where to turn, or when things look tough, we can remind ourselves, what did God really desire for me? What has he provided for me to help me through these things? And so in Psalm 16, we have David who's talking to God, and he says, preserve me, O God. In you I take my refuge. You are my Lord, and I have no good apart from you. And he's talking about how all these other people around him are troubling him, and they're seeking after evil things. And he says in verse 5, the Lord is my chosen portion. The Lord is my cup, and you hold my lot. I know things are troubled around me. I know evil people are seeking after all of these evil things, and they think that's what's going to sustain them. But I know that times are tough right now, and so Lord, you are my portion. You are my cup. You are the food and the drink that is going to fill me, sustain me, and carry me through these dark times where so many people are seeking evil against me, and I have nowhere else to turn. And so you hear the heart of someone who now seeks to follow after God. You could turn over to Lamentations, and it's a verse that goes along with a song that we're all familiar with in Lamentations chapter 3. But just the concept of the book of Lamentations, these prophecies from the prophet who is going through the worst of times, through this time where Israel has done all of the evil in the book, and they're now about to be punished for it, or Judah is at this point, to get to that part of the world. He looks out and he goes, God, things are bad. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know why they haven't listened to you, and all of these sort of things. And in the beginning of chapter 3, he says, I am a man who has seen affliction. I've been through it, Lord. I've been around the block, and it's not getting any easier. This is a tough road to hoe. I have seen the worst of things. I have seen affliction under the rod of wrath. And he goes through this and he says, my skin is wasting away. I'm hurting. I am troubled. Things are not getting any better. My teeth are being ground down. You can imagine this imagery that he's using. But then we get to the part that we're most familiar with out of this section. I like to write little music notes on the side when it's stuff that's been set to music at different points. So I have my music notes at verse 22. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul, and therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is my portion. What is the portion? The portion is His grace, His mercy, His steadfast love, so that even in these worst of situations where they are literally being sent into captivity, the nation is collapsing around them, God's people who thought this was going to be the land of milk and honey and they never could handle it, are being carted off. And the prophet still says, but Lord, you are my portion. You are the only thing that is going to sustain me, because I know these are the good things you desired for me, and these are the things that I am going to hold fast to no matter what happens. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Your mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Like when we sing that, it's a nice upbeat, peppy song, right? But how often do we think that it is set among some of the darkest days of God's people? So when Jesus is looking at Martha and he says, Mary has chosen the good portion, this is what he's calling them back to. He says, all of these times where God said, I will be with you, I will sustain you, I will look over you, I have blessings and promises that abound and are abundant, and you will never understand the depths of them. That is the good portion. That is the meal that will carry you through emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Martha, you are anxious and troubled, but I have a good portion for you. Now, if that's where we left Martha, it'd kind of be one of those, you finish the TV series and you go, so what happened next? And they say, oh, you're supposed to think about it. You're supposed to imagine what happened next. And you go, I don't want to imagine, I want to know. We all encounter that situation, right? The nice thing is we don't end this conversation with Martha and have to wonder what happened to her next. We get another interaction between Jesus and Martha, and we get to find out exactly what happened to her. But I want you to know He is calling her to think about some things, and thinking for us to think about these things as well. Do we feel pressured to the point that we no longer feel the presence of Christ? Do we feel under pressure to where we forget that He's right there next to us? Because He says the same thing to us today. Are you anxious? Are you troubled? Are you so busy that you don't even recognize I'm right here with you? Martha was ready, but she wasn't taking advantage. Mary was. We have those same opportunities to be right in the presence with Jesus, reading His words, hearing His comfort, feeling His presence, knowing how much He loves us. But that busyness, man, that'll get us rolling. We are so rushed. I got to get here. I got to get there. I got to get all this list done. Do you understand exactly what pressure I'm under? My goodness, I can't ever take care of this. And we just feel the heart speeding up. We're so rushed that we don't ever feel His reassurance. We don't ever build that relationship with Jesus, because relationships take time to build. You don't have a conversation in 2 seconds with someone and rush off from them. You have a relationship with someone by sharing a meal, by sitting down, by getting to know them, by just having a moment on the porch, sharing a lemonade or a cup of coffee, and being with each other. That is what Jesus was calling her to do. And so we, again, get to that question of, so did Martha take advantage of that? Did she do that, or did she go right back in and feel those same anxieties? We could go through several other examples, things that we've talked about, and you could imagine these in your mind, but I just want us to kind of firmly set in our mind that if we're sitting there eating all the junk food, we will never eat the main meal. If you are sitting there focused on manning the grill, doing the dishes, being the good host or hostess, but never spending time with your friends, you are not actually living with those people. You don't get to know them any better. You don't build the relationship with them. If you're spending all day at the office working on the next task, you're not actually spending time with your family. If I'm always worried about making sure all the minute details of worship are taken care of, or the building, let's be honest here, the building pieces are taken care of, I'm never actually worshiping. In all of these things, they are not necessarily wrong, but they are the things that will distract us. They are the things that will build anxiety. And so whatever situation we need to input for our own life, we all fall into that trap. But let's get to the good news. Let's get to what happens with Martha in John chapter 11. So open up to John chapter 11. We'll start down in verse 20. The setup for all of this is Martha has probably spent a lot more time with Jesus at this point. Martha, Mary, and their brother Lazarus were well known to Jesus. They were close friends with Jesus, to the point that now Lazarus has died. And there's probably some difficult feelings amongst different people about how that went down. And there was some misunderstanding of exactly what was going on. Why didn't Jesus get there too early enough to handle this? What is going to go on? What is going to happen next? What does this mean for his friends, his disciples? What do we do with all the things that Jesus has promised us? And now the time is that Jesus is returning to Martha's home. Verse 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out and met him. Right from that moment. When we meet Martha the first time, she welcomes Jesus in her home, but then she's back taking care of business. She's not with Jesus. This time, she leaves her home, and it says she goes out to meet him. She wants to immediately get close to Jesus in this situation. When Martha heard he was coming, she goes out to meet him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Again, maybe there's some more things to discover about that, what's being said about the swapping of places with various sisters, but again, we're going to remain focused on Martha. And so as she comes up to Jesus, she says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." If we stopped it there, we could read in, is she frustrated? Is she angry? Is she disappointed? Is she upset? What's going on? Because you can read a lot of things into that, but that's not the end of her statement. Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, but even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." I hear a different Martha. I don't hear anxious and troubled. I don't hear distracted. I don't hear pulling away. I hear someone who is really digging in and growing close to the Christ that she might not have spent enough time with in that first conversation. Jesus then replies to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha says, "I know that he'll rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Whoa, there's a statement for you. I mean, how many verses do we have in the New Testament where it talks about the resurrection being the core of the gospel? That all things hinge on the resurrection being real. If the resurrection wasn't real, then we're to be pitied. We're someone who has no hope. All of these things are built on this idea, and we have Martha in this situation, in this second conversation with Jesus, coming up and saying, "I believe there's a resurrection coming. You've told me about it. I've sat at your feet. I've heard these things. I believe these promises to be true. I know he's going to rise in the resurrection on the last day." But Jesus looks at her and says, "There's not just a resurrection coming. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." And he asks this question, "Do you believe this?" There's a lot of questions Jesus asks of people throughout his ministry. And I always wonder how I would have responded to some of those. But I love Martha's response. She just got asked, not only do you believe there's a resurrection, but do you believe that Jesus Christ is the resurrection and he has all this immense power that gives hope for everyone? And her response is, "Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, I believe everything you just told me." And then she continues, "I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God. I believe you are the one coming into the world." That's a statement of faith right there. Martha had a conversation with Jesus where he challenged her. He pushed on her a little bit. He saw who she was, and he said, look, I know you are anxious. I know you are troubled. I know that you are struggling right now with all the cares of this world, and you are not choosing the good portion that God has set aside for his people, and I am presenting to you and present with you right now. She took that and went, you're right. And we know that she changed based on these statements right here. Martha was a changed person. She had chosen the good portion, and we see that through these 3 statements of faith that she makes. First off, she says that she knows that Jesus is empowered by God. I know the power comes straight from him. I know that you have a connection with him. And in each of these, you can still feel that she doesn't quite understand all the details. How many of us could say that we understand every detail of what it means for Jesus to be God? Or for him to have power? Or how did his power manifest while he was on earth? And what did that mean for him to be man and God? And for us to try to wrestle with all these things. So we go, yeah, we don't understand it all either. But she knew enough, and we can know enough to say, Lord, I know that your power came directly from God above. I know that you have the power to do many things because God has empowered you. He has planned for this to happen. So she says, I know Jesus, my friend, my neighbor, my teacher, my brother's friend. I know that you have power that I can't explain in any other way. And I trust that what you have said about where it came from is true. She says, I know that there's hope in a resurrection. I know that this is not the end. I know, and again, just like David was going through hard times, just like Jeremiah was preaching and prophesying in hard times, she's going through a hard time. Her brother is dead. She has who knows how many people at her house mourning his loss. Later in the passage, when they talk about opening the tomb, they say, it's going to stink. This is a reality. She's going through a deep, personal, emotional time of trouble. And yet in that, she still can proudly say, I know there's going to be a resurrection. And then she has Jesus respond to her, yeah, there's going to be a resurrection, and it's way better than you can ever imagine. It's going to mean more to not just you and your brother and these people who are gathered here, these people that I'm here to weep and sorrow with. It's going to mean more to everyone throughout all of time who has ever trusted and believed in God the Father and in me and my promises, to where at the very end of time you will all rise and never die again. That still blows my mind. Imagine what that felt for her in that moment. She's blown away by this sort of thing. And for her response to be a strong and simple, yes, Lord, I believe that, when the question was posed to her, is frankly amazing. And it shows the power of one conversation changing someone's outlook, because she follows that up by saying, I believe you are the Christ. You are the King. You are the one that I want to follow. I want to follow no one else. I see the point in following no one else because you are the good portion in my life, and I have fully chosen that. You are the Son of God, the one who has been promised to all of us. You are the one through whom every promise is going to be fulfilled. You are the one who is coming into power to have a kingdom that we can't even begin to understand. Yes, Jesus, I have chosen the good portion. And we are able to see that through the statements that she made. Martha was a changed person because of her conversation with Jesus. Martha was never condemned for the work that she was doing. And sometimes when we hit this point and we read that first conversation with Martha, we can sometimes go, oh, so the stuff that I'm doing is the problem. The stuff we're doing is not the problem. Jesus never said, Martha, quit taking care of us so well. Martha, the meal will take care of itself. He never says any of that to her. That's not what he says to us. There are still tasks that need to be taken care of. There are things that need to be done. But the problem is when our focus is out of place. We're warned against the work that crowds out Christ. If the work becomes the point instead of Christ being the point and who we're working for, that's the problem. But we can see now that Martha had put things in the right order. I doubt Martha as a person changed as far as her desiring to be the good hostess, to be the sister who took care of things. We still see that she shows up as a disciple in Jesus' ministry. She's still listed as people who took care of things and were present in several different situations. So we know that she was still doing stuff. She hadn't given that part up. What had changed is she now had put things in the right order. It wasn't the busyness that was filling her. It was Christ that filled her. And so for us, we have that same question. It's, are we going to be the people to choose the good portion? Or are we going to let all the stuff of the world be what we're filling up on? Are we showing up for the party and eating all the crackers, but never being able to be satisfied with the steak or the lasagna or whatever it is that we really looked forward to? Are we filling up with a lot of tasks, but not actually spending time with Jesus? So as we consider that today, there's always that time where we could say, hey, we really need the prayers of the congregation to help us refocus our life. And I know that there are strong men in this congregation. There are ministry leaders. There are women that you trust that you can pull next to, and they would love to hear those struggles and walk with you through those things. I know that if you are someone who has not chosen the good portion, Jesus is standing there with that same question. Are you just going to stand there and continue to be anxious and troubled? Or will you take of that good portion that I desired for you? Will you come into me and let me wash your sins away in the waters of baptism? Will you let me carry that load for you so that we can now walk together, partaking in all the promises that I have had for you? If that's something that you need to respond to this evening, I know there are men who are willing to receive you. Why don't you come while we stand and while we sing?